thanks. Like, hey, Scoob, did you hear Nikki Blake is hosting a Scooby-Doo panel? No. Yeah. Like on today's Scooby-Doo episode, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy meet Nikki Blake. Yeah, and a Scooby Panel. Like, we need to get this puppy started. Okay, Nikki Blake, take it away, Scooby-Doo.
Welcome to the Scooby Panel. I'm your host, Nikki Blake. I am joined by Wendy BRYDGE, and today we are talking to New York Times bestselling author, John Sazaklis. John, it is amazing to have you here. I'm so excited.
It's my pleasure to be here. I keep trying to get into the frame so you can see my Scooby hat. This has been a long time coming, so I'm glad that, you know, the new year brought us together. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we're really excited to talk to you. We've been reading your books. So Wendy and I have been reading them this week.
And got some,
yeah. So John, can you tell us about yourself? When did you start writing and drawing?
Why don't I take you down a trip through memory lane? Can I do that? I'm going to try.
Absolutely.
As a visual storyteller, obviously, it helps to have visual aids in my case. And I think it might also prompt questions and, you know, bring up things that I may have forgotten along the way. Since
we love visuals here. We love them.
Good.
The more, the better.
Oh,
good,
yeah.
Good. I've been doing this since the last century, so you might not recognize me in some of my pictures. So hi, my name is John Sazaklis. I am the author, illustrator, and designer of many of your favorite characters. Can you spot the ones we're here to talk about today? So I've been doing this for a long time. You may not be able to tell I've been a fanboy since the 80s when I dressed as the Joker for Halloween. I always did skew a little bad. And I remember specifically one of my favorite Scooby-Doo episodes growing up was where they teamed up with Batman and Robin. You know, this was in the middle of Batmania. Burton's Batman was in theaters. Adam's Batman was on TV. So we had the bright night during the day and the dark night at night. And it definitely influenced, obviously, my drawing, my storytelling. I was really into, you know, a lot of what Warner Brothers and DC was putting out.
These are wonderful.
Oh, thank you. This I wrote in first grade, I want to say. I don't know if you guys can read it. The teacher asked us to write a letter to a friend. I chose the Ghostbusters. I know that the Mystery Inc. gang and the Ghostbusters are distant relatives. They haven't collaborated yet, as far as I know.
Yeah, not yet. In the future.
But fingers crossed. Yes, I have written books for both of them, as you can see. So I'm super excited if and when the moment comes to get my hands on it. Again, going into the 90s, I was obviously influenced by animation and comic books. And we had Disney and Marvel, which are now one and the same, you know, kind of dominating that market, along with Batman, the animated series. Again,
love it.
That's great.
I don't know if one manifested the other, but I was lucky to write the, you know, Genie's adaptation, Little Golden Book. And then again, this is, you know, bringing the past into the present and how my formative years influenced the path I guess I had taken. I was very lucky to write the Batman, the He-Man and She-Ra Little Golden Books. Sorry, I designed them. I wrote the She-Ra one, and if you buy both and put them together, they make a complete scene.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's great.
Then there's the college years, much like Saved by the Bell. We entered now. There's me in my Batman tie, drawing the wonderful models we have in front of us. And then, you know, some samples of my illustration. Obviously, you had asked me who influenced me growing up. I mean, I love Kevin Maguire's art, as you can see here on this Aquaman cover. and I drew my own version of it with Hercules fighting Triton.
Mhm.
I was definitely influenced by John Byrne and Dave Cockrum and their X-Men years in the 70s and 80s. Jim Lee in the 90s, obviously, had a lot of influence on me. Not to say that Batman hasn't been one of my favorite characters growing up. Here I am at the office, actually. They tell you to dress for the job that you want.
Perfect.
Which takes us to the one of the questions you had really wanted to tackle, which was the first book I ever written that got published was Batman Gotham Villains Unleashed. So this was about 12 years ago. And I was working at HarperCollins, and we had just gotten the classic DC license. So we were working on Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, and all the characters therein. And as a designer, you know, it was a big deal for me to kind of cross over into the editorial and say, hey, I've been a fan of this stuff my whole life. I can write it in my sleep. Can I submit a sample and, you know, see where it goes to DC and Warner Brothers? And I was lucky enough to do so and to get accepted. And not only did I want to write the book, I was like, I'm gonna art direct it also. So I sketched out every page, every spread. The blue sketch is the work that I send to the artists, Mada design, and the bottom is the final art that you'll see in the book. That being said, because I was so attached to this project, I didn't know if it was gonna be a one and done kind of thing. So, you know, when you have the opportunity and you shoot your shot, I say, it's going to be Batman and Robin, and it's going to be like all the bad guys. Because, you know, you love the episodes where the bad guys team up, obviously. You want to get more bang for your buck, as I call it. So for me, two of my favorite episodes of Batman growing up was the 60s TV show was The Entrancing Dr. Cassandra, where she breaks everybody out of Arkham Asylum, or the jail. Arkham wasn't invented yet. And in the Batman animated series, it was the Almost Got 'Em episode, where all the bad guys get together and talk about how they almost defeated Batman. So in my story, the Joker breaks everybody out of Arkham, and they run amok. And at the end of the day, you know, Batman and Robin save the day, and we all live happily ever after. So to actually have it printed, published, become an actual book was great. I had no idea that it had hit the bestseller list until much later, maybe a month or so after it had released, 2 months. So to see it, you know, there in black and white among the Amulet and the Kite Runner and Watchmen and Smile and all these other, you know, graphic novelists that are obviously, you know, leagues ahead of my own, was awesome. I also think because it was a Batman book for kids that hadn't been on the market, you know, now the market is lousy with them. Every cartoon show, every, you know, movie, every sort of media has a tie-in or book or a, you know, novelization. This was kind of groundbreaking to have, you know, there was a few in the 80s and the 90s, but nothing really that like is still going now, strong, with so many tie-ins. I have a feeling that this book, you know, 12 years later is probably out of print and you can get it from a secondhand market. But it was super exciting to be able to work on this. And then, you know, this led to, obviously, it opened doors for more projects, specifically Spiderman, which was right at the time that the Tobey Maguire movies were coming out. So we were also doing books on, you know, to tie in, not specifically movie adaptations, but original stories that I, again, submission process, sending sample art to Marvel Comics, getting approved, and being able to illustrate 2 of the 3 chapter books that we published. So I got to design the covers, make them like old school kind of pulpy paperbacks with a modern twist. And then, you know, drawing traditionally. This is all, you know, animation blue pencil on tracing paper. And then obviously it was layered so I could do the webbing on one layer and then put the effects on a second layer and then save those, print them out, and then ink over them before, you know, scanning them for final print. And obviously you'll notice that things moved around, things got grayscale, things got colored differently. That's kind of like the polishing that you get to do in the computer. But I do like to work old school. I do like to work traditionally. That's the only way I know how, or I feel comfortably. You know, so you can see that like the webbing and the scales have all been done by hand.
That's really
Yeah,
awesome.
they're beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll let you guys jump in at any time if there are questions here or anything that I've maybe skipped over before we proceed.
For the Spider-Man books, did you also write them?
In this case, I did not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, when you're a full-time designer and a part-time writer and or illustrator, you can't do it all. So in this case, I designed and illustrated, where in the first one, I wrote and rough sketched, you know, not final illustration. And then after my daughter was born, I did a lot more writing and less illustrating because of the time crunch, so to speak. So I grew up in Hicksville on Long Island here in New York. And when I had the option to write an original character from scratch for the publisher Capstone, they wanted someone who was like a troublemaker that, you know, kind of learns his lesson at the end. And I was like, well, I mean, you know, I've years and years of personal experience to pull from, obviously. I mean, I've lived it. So every story in this series has kind of been drawn from reality. So, you know, when you ask me, do I have original characters? I definitely put a lot of myself into my work. So Billy is a third grade troublemaker. I apologize for the sirens in the back. They found me. They're coming to get me. You'll notice that the guy in the background dressed like an astronaut is a super samurai from outer space. I definitely got to set this original story series in my old hometown. All the places that I got to hang out in Hicksville, my family's donut shop, the House of Donuts, is in it. When my grandparents came to America, they started their own bakery, and it's called the House of Donuts in Hicksville. My friends are in there, as you can see. Billy's got, you know, a couple of best friends named after my personal friends. And then the superheroes that they watch on TV are the super samurais from outer space. And it's 4 brothers. To stop me if you've heard this one. And they're like Galileo, Nostradamus, etc. And it's my play on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Very cool.
They also like watching Paranormal Investigators, which is my version of the Ghostbusters. So, you know, a lot of me and what has inspired me is what I try to put into my books. Another question that you asked is like, when I write books, who do I have in mind? I have kids like me growing up, like what they were influenced by, what they want to read in their media. Is it funny? Is it creepy? Is it scary? Is it mysterious? All of the above. And I think, you know, pulling it back to Scooby-Doo, they cover all of that. You've got your comedy, you've got your mystery, and you've got your just right frights.
Yeah.
We can gloss over another series that I worked on, was the DC superhero pets. Obviously, I did not come up with them. They've existed. There is a bat cow, there is a Flash turtle, you know, a Marvel bunny, a Shazam rabbit, and a super cat. But I have been able to populate these stories with, again, friends and family, which has now become canon in DC Comics. For example, Queen Mira has a niece named Nicoletta, who's a mermaid named after my wife. Joey and Johnny, the evil henchfish of the Ocean Master, are me and my best friend Joe. Frankie and George are my brothers, so they get to be angry fish. So, that's the other thing. It's be nice to me. Or, you end up in a book in an unflattering light.
So the next question that we have is, when you're writing a children's book, for example, a Scooby-Doo book,
Mhm.
what is the process that you go through? And then does the studio, whether it's Warner Brothers or if you're writing a different series, give you basic ideas for you to go from, or do you have a lot of creative freedom over what you want?
We can start with Scooby-Doo specifically. So one of the first series I wrote for was You Choose, which is Choose Your Own Adventure book. If you don't have it, I'll hold it up here. Bingo.
Yeah.
I called it Mystery of the Maze Monster. Like I said, there is a Minotaur character in Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. Love him or hate him. I don't know if Scrappy-Doo is canon here on this channel.
We're split. I love Scrappy, and Nikki's opinion on this doesn't matter. I'm just kidding.
He's okay. He's all right. I don't love him. I could do without him, but he's okay.
Small doses.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. So in this case, writing Mystery of the Maze Monster, I got to work with a clean slate. Aside from the Mystery Inc. gang, all the characters they meet are new that I've created. The villain is new. The villain under the villain, for lack of a better term, is also new. And because it's a choose your own adventure, I kind of, again, my first Scooby book, what is it? Aimed for the fences. You know, like I wanted to go all out. So you get 10 different endings. And I had like my conspiracy board chart. I was like, this, you know, you take this path, it goes here, and everything takes you to an ending. And it works if you go back and read it, because some of those avenues, you know, will also take you to separate stories. So everything had to like line up as best as possible. For me, the influence was Clue, the movie based on the game, which is a big favorite of mine. Again, you know, ties into mystery and comedy, if you love the movie, because I know I do. Just get comfortable. So that being said, this takes place in a mansion. There is a butler and a maid named Wadsworth and Yvette. I don't know if you're fans of the movie, or I'm sure your fans are fans. They better be. And the man who lives in the mansion is Minos King, a billionaire named after King Minos, the king who had the Minotaur in his labyrinth from Greek mythology. So another question is inspiration, you know, being Greek and loving Greek mythology as a kid, and the parallel that they have to, you know, fantasy, superhero lore, all that stuff. I mean, you know, you want it, you got it. I wanted to put it into the story. Miss Daedalus and her son Icarus are the architect of the maze, the hedge maze that's outside the mansion where the Minotaur has been spotted. So as we meet characters in the story, depending on the path that you take, the villain is always different. Does that make sense? So I wanted to give you an experience where it's like, when you get to one ending, the Minotaur is revealed and it's like, oh, you know, I'm not spoiling anything because obviously whichever path you take is going to have a different ending. So, you know, it's, again, replay value is that what I want. You know, it's like if you love a book, you can go back and read it plenty of times and get a different story every time. So it is one of my my most proudest achievements or accomplishments, being able to like, and again, I wrote this before I had a kid, so you know, I was able to like use brain power and actually come up. The mini mysteries I wrote post kid because they're shorter and easier to digest. These kind of exist in world canon. The monster is always going to be whoever it has been revealed in canon. Like if you were to ask me if you have a favorite villain that ended up in one of my books, would you be able to tell me who it was?
Oh, that's a good question. On the spot.
Who is the abominable snowman? Who is Captain Redbeard? Who was the spooky space ghost? Oh yeah, they're all behind me.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pictures and I'm trying to come up with something. Like which one has like a history or a mythology or anything like that. I'm trying to rack my brain and all of a sudden all my Scooby knowledge is gone.
I know, when you're on the spot.
It's
Could you imagine if you were on a game show? Come on now.
Oh my goodness. I would lose. I can say that 100% I would lose. First round out.
and Wendy has a better memory than I do because she's younger than me. So
How it goes. I mean, I couldn't tell you who's who unless I opened the book. But that being said, because it was the 50th anniversary, these books came out last year or the year before, they're based on the first season of the show, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? So the villain reveal would tie in with the episode, but it's not based on the episode. They're all original stories. It's just that the villain and the monster have been taken from that original story and placed into a brand new environment. So I guess if kids were ever to go watch the episode that the monster appears in, you know, it would be familiar characters, it would make sense. I don't know what the logic behind that was, but you know, if you're working in a universe that has its rules, you know,
Yeah.
that's what you got to do.
Did you find it more challenging when essentially, like, no, the ending is not already decided, but you already know who has to be the villain? Having that restriction, was that more difficult than just having a blank slate of whatever characters I want and wherever I want to take them, I can take them? Was it a lot more difficult?
Yeah, sometimes it's harder, you know, coloring within the lines because, you know, I have to get from A to B without diverging from the path. Like, you know, if Captain Cutler's ghost lives, where does he haunt? Wherever he haunts. Now I'm the one who's on, and I picked the that's at the bottom of my pile. You know, if he haunts Rocky Point Beach, if the ghost haunts a particular place, he's got to be there. Although, with the spooky space ghost, I was able to create the Air and Space Museum that he haunted. The villain is the same, but he haunts a new place where the curator of said museum, it's an aeronautical museum, Air and Space Museum. The director is Dr. Skoufalos, my
There
wife.
we go.
She works at the museum that is being haunted by this space.
Nice.
Spook. Yeah. So again, one of your questions was, does my daughter like my books? Right?
And have you ever put her in a book? Yeah.
Yes and yes. Like I told you, I put my family in books. My daughter didn't appear in books until after she was born. You see how that works. She hasn't made it into any Scooby books, but she has made it into my Boo books, which is kind of like a Scooby tie-in, in the fact that it's they're books that are for kids that are spooky, scary. I like them to be silly, obviously. So there's a twist at the end where the monster is either misunderstood or the humans are the monsters and the aliens just are doing their own business and we get in their way, kind of thing. So yeah, she's appeared in a couple of those books, and it's exciting to watch her read them and tell her friends about them, or even read like the books, the other original stories that I've done, like Billy Burger and Crystal Ball. Billy Burger is a 3rd grade troublemaker. Crystal Ball is a 4th grade fortune teller. So now that she's, you know, in third grade, when this airs, I'll say, oh, it was before or after, if I'm wrong. Yeah, so she's old enough now to read my books that are for elementary school kids that are her age.
That's great.
That's really cool.
And does she brag that she's in your books?
You'd think that she would. I don't know if she does. I know she's brought them to school and they're in her school library. I also know that I embarrass her no matter what I do. So it's kind of, you know, touch and go.
It doesn't get much better the older they get. We're so embarrassing. So
But you have
Yeah.
children?
I have two. Yes, they're 20 and 16.
Oh, so like
So.
Scrappy and Scrappy, yeah.
Do you have to deal with Warner Brothers at all, or does Random House deal with Warner Brothers?
When I started, if I work at the company that like at Harper at Random, and I was writing and designing the book, yes, I would deal with the licensors, as they're known. If I'm like the third party getting hired by a different publisher, like Capstone, my editor or my art director will deal with the licensor, and they'll get back to me and say, these are their comments. This is what you have to change. This is what they want. These are the characters they want to use. Like for the first series, we picked, I guess, the most popular villains. I don't know if you guys have like a ranking of which are the top 10 most popular villains, but that's who we tried to use. And then again, like with these mini mysteries, it was just stick to the reveal, wherever the character is, wherever it takes place, and then everything else was just, you know, like I said, I was able to make up new characters to kind of populate the Big Top Bandit was fun because I got to create the ringmaster and the circus acts that perform at the circus that the gang interacts with. Because, you know, as much as we love the gang, it's always nice to get different characters or like new people to also, you know, use as suspects. It's still a mystery. So, you know, if you're coming to this new and you don't know anything, no matter what your age is, yeah, I do populate the stories with plenty of suspects, and ultimately it ends up being the one that, you know, would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those meddling kids.
Yeah.
Right. Wendy?
Okay. Well, I mean, first off, I feel like I'm going to fail this challenge, but you asked which original villain out of those books that you've written. There's only two of them that are kind of like in my mind that potentially either the snow ghost or the swamp monster.
Yeah.
Those are my guesses.
Okay.
Am I right?
The snow ghost and the swamp monster, you're going to tell me what? That they're from...
Well, you had said that if we could guess out of the original characters that you've written for, which one would be your favorite that you wrote.
Oh,
yeah. Those are my guesses. And I want to know the answer.
What about Nikki? Nikki, which ones are your favorites? And we'll see where we end up.
Of the ones that you did, I'm gonna go with Captain Cutler and Charlie the Robot.
Ooh, where's Charlie? There he is. Oh, and I get to come up with the titles, and I love alliteration. So if you haven't noticed that, you know, totally like Monster March after Monster March. Are you kidding me? Come on now. Well, maybe if you haven't noticed, this is my coffee mug. So we've got King Triton. And this is my water glass. And we've got Aquaman. So you've definitely fallen in the right area when you say Captain Cutler and the Swamp Monster, because they take place on the water. And in Monster Marsh, the gang gets to put on their scuba gear. So I had a lot of fun writing Scooby stuff. Let's see. And again, it's the classic, you know, 50-year-old scuba gear that they had on in the days of yore.
Perfect.
So I definitely got to incorporate that. And yeah, Captain Cutler, obviously, because it's one of those antique scuba diving suits, you know, from there it is. Yeah. And because, you know, I also wanted to be an astronaut as well as a marine biologist.
Nice.
Because I'm the class clown, I think you covered all your bases. Like you've known me my whole life. And yeah, I had the Funland one, obviously. It relates to the fun side of it. But they're all, I mean, you know, the fact that like I also get to play with the physics of things.
Mhm.
Like Redbeard, they're making food, and Scooby thinks he's putting in lemon juice, but it's lemon soap. Yeah. As you do, which is based on a true story. A lot of immigrants that came to this country didn't know how to read, mistakenly thought that the lemon hand soap or the dish soap was lemon juice, because you don't put a fruit or a vegetable item on a cleaning product. And they learned that the hard way when this happened.
Oh, it's awesome.
Oh, and they get to dress up as pirates. I mean, wow.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
images I can send them later. And that's the other thing that I get to play with, splitting them up into different duos or trios. You know, I'm assuming everyone knows that it's always like Scooby and Shaggy and then everyone else, but you know, it's like, who can I put together that hasn't been put together before? So if you have any favorite duos, maybe I've already covered them. I'll leave that to you to answer. Like, who doesn't get their day in the sun, do you feel is getting like the short end of the Scooby?
We did actually just have a panel. Every once in a while we do a panel where we call it Table Topics, and it's based on the Table Topics game, but it's all about Scooby. So me and another girl host it. We ask crazy questions about Scooby-Doo, and one of the last questions was, who would you pair up together? So yeah, we came up with some interesting combinations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I came up with pairing the guys and the girls. So you have Fred, Shaggy, and Scooby together, and then Daphne and Velma together.
Yes, that's what I think I did in Redbeard's Revenge, when Fred says, let's split up. They're like, great, and they go in separate directions. So it's Daphne and Velma are together, Scooby and Shaggy are together, and Fred gets left alone, and then he's snatched by Redbeard. So that was, you know, again, getting to subvert expectations for the grown-ups, or you know what I mean, for like the fans, because the kids, unless they're familiar with the source material, I just hope they're along for the ride and having a good time and going back to it. So you know, that's what makes me happy. And it's weird when you're a grown man and you're on like the subway and there's a kid reading your book and you're like, excuse me, son. My wife's like, you can't do that. Because you know, in my mind, I'm still like 12. You know what I mean? But it's not a good look.
Well, but it's still like, I mean, if whether I was a kid or not, even as an adult, I would be thrilled to meet you, because obviously I bought the book. I'm interested in it. I would love it. So for like, I would definitely say, like, I understand in today's world with optics and stuff, but like, whatever, you might have made that kid's day. I mean, like, hey, you know what?
I'm in the bookstore, you know, I put my books in front of the other ones, obviously. And then if I see like a parent or a kid looking at them, I'm like, hey, I wrote that book. And they're like, what? And I'm like, here's my ID. Here's the title page. Sometimes if I'm in the book, like if I get the artist to draw me as a cameo, and I'm like, here I am in the background, as a police officer or as a bandit, you know. And then I follow them to the register. Like a store detective, and make sure that they're there.
And then do you sign it for them once they buy it?
Yes, I do. It hasn't happened often. They just run away screaming. But there are times where, like, I walked into Barnes & Noble. The picture in the article is me in a Barnes & Noble holding up my book that has an autographed copy sticker on it. Because, you know, I went to the manager or the person working the children's floor, and I was like, hey, psst, I'm the author. Can I sign these books? So they don't think I'm vandalizing. It's like, you know, then you can put the sticker on it and people are gonna be like, hey, this is, you know, it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's really
since
cool.
I brought that up. Oh yeah, so here's me going into stores and finding my books and putting them in front of the other ones.
It's great.
And the fun stuff, you know, is I get to get toys as research. Obviously, you need to put yourself in the mindset of the characters that you're writing.
I
Absolutely.
like that, and I'm gonna start using that. That I buy all of the Scooby stuff for research.
It's a tax write-off. Are you kidding me? I mean, you know.
Oh, God.
And then going again, this is at Midtown Comics, and it's like, of course, my books are going to go in front of
Why not?
that. Old news. Oh, this just put in a little footnote. Going to Greece and finding one of my books translated into Greek, huge deal. And of all the books, you know, Wonder Woman, who hails from Greece herself. So
Right.
that was kind of like inception, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah,
So
I think that
Scooby books in other languages yet, but we'll see.
it'll come. It'll come because Scooby's universal. Everybody loves
Yeah.
Scooby, so it's just a matter of time.
They do. You and I know it, and that's why we're here.
Exactly.
I love your Vincent Price crystal ball.
Thank you. I made that.
You did?
I did. I did make that.
She's a very good
So
artist, so
Thank you.
she
drew it?
can
Thank you.
she can
I did make
draw,
it.
she can paint, she can make things out of cardboard. It's
Why
crazy.
aren't we collaborating? This is fantastic. I have
I'm-
one
You
of
know
the-
where to find me.
One of the last comic books I picked up was Vincent Price and Elvira, and I feel like
Oh,
they've both
wonderful.
been on Scooby-Doo. So,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, it's like a family reunion.
Absolutely. So
So
were you like a big Scooby fan as a kid? Was it something that you watched regularly, or was it more something that you kind of just came into maybe like a little bit later in life?
no, I remember watching it as a kid. What was the one with the kids? The
Pop
Scooby-Doo?
name Scooby-Doo.
Up named Scooby-Doo. That
Mhm.
was my I don't want to say my introduction to it, because I knew that they were older. So I feel like, you know, parallel to discovering Scooby-Doo was watching A Pup Named Scooby-Doo regularly. And around the same time, watching Clue. If you know Clue, the way I have it memorized, communism is just a red herring. And Red Herring was a character on A Pup Named Scooby-Doo. He was always the red herring. So to be able to, like, you know, make that connection and like clever wordplay, that was definitely up my alley. And so yeah, it was definitely from, you know, and then like you kind of move on, and you know, and then I remember there was movies. By the time that the live action movies and the animated movies came out, I was in college, so I kind of I don't want to say outgrew him, but
Had less time.
had less
For him.
time to devote to the Scoobs.
Yeah.
But then working on Scoob, the animated movie, was great because it kind of like brought me back. Well, no, I was already working on these books before Scoob. I was just happy to find out that Scoob ended. Oh, am I giving anything away? Has everyone on the channel watched Scoob?
Oh no, you can give it away. It's fine.
It's not the ending specifically, but Alexander the Great and the underworld and all that Greek stuff kind of makes an appearance in it. And you know, when you're working on something in advance that's a movie tie-in, you can't give away the ending. So we didn't have access to the ending. We just had access to a style guide, and you know, had to keep everything very meet the characters, meet the villains. You know, this is how the gang meets, and no specific plot spoilers. So I was pleasantly surprised when I got to see the movie that that was one of the plot points.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, to tie in with your other question, if I was a voracious reader as a kid, it was mysteries. The Boxcar Children and Encyclopedia Brown were, you know, definitely the stuff that I was reading in elementary school. And then in middle school, it was Christopher Pike and R.L. Stine. Definitely horror that was like older. And you'd be surprised how violent those books are, because now everything's very sanitary. But oh, I love that stuff. Kidding me?
Yeah,
So
great. Definitely.
although I mean, I know they did a Scooby-Doo apocalypse version where they're like older and everyone's like so gritty and grimy and gross. It's something for everybody. That's my
Yeah.
diplomatic answer.
Yeah, just because somebody else can enjoy it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to enjoy it, but
Like you said, we
fine
haven't.
that it's there.
Yeah, it's fine that it's there. And I know there's been some discourse about the new Velma series. I'm sure you guys will probably cover that at some point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we're
Maybe not.
actually going to cover it because at the moment neither of us want to watch it.
Yeah, we're not really on board with any of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
To be honest.
That
Yeah.
being said, as much as I wanted to expose my daughter to the Matthew Lillard version of, I know, because 2022 we had the new Scream. I'm a huge Scream head. One is related to the other. No spoilers. And but I felt like the movies themselves were of their time, and I don't know. She was a lot younger, and I was like, oh, is it going to be like sexualized and like drug references? They are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm glad that half the cast is female, and I obviously want her to have good female representation. But they did make some Nickelodeon or TV movie versions of Scooby-Doo with the Mystery of the Lake Monster or whatever it was.
Mhm.
She loved that one. And then there's the Daphne and Velma movie, which she also enjoyed because, it's the girls and they're in high school and they're solving mysteries. And it takes place in a century where they have, devices like phones and iPads, so she could relate. So yeah, so she outgrew it now. She's actually with my wife watching The Cursed Child. So they're very huge Potterheads. But the fact that, and she's actually saving these for when she's older because they don't have pictures in them. I don't know if you guys have read them or if they've made it to the channel, but right now they're propping up my laptop until she's ready for them. So yes, it was like, again, I grew up with it. I'm working on it. So obviously if it's something that I'm working on and she's interested in, I'm going to nurture that love and, expose her to media that is age appropriate and also content, the content would be interesting to her. You know what I mean? So we're lucky that we live in a time now where there's enough, like you said, something for everybody. Whether or not it's good or bad remains to be seen.
Yeah. Everyone can decide that for himself.
And keep it to themselves.
Exactly. Amen to that. So you've done a lot of both illustrating and writing, and you have already said that sort of transitioning to more of the writing was essentially kind of like a time thing.
Yes.
But if there were no constraints or anything, which is your favorite? Which do you prefer, the illustrating side or the writing side?
I would love to do both, to be honest, because, it's only I know what's going on in here. And I would love to, bring that out and put the two together. So it's great for me anytime I get to write, like to play in the sandbox of Scooby-Doo or Spiderman or whoever it is. I know I'll bring Batman, for example. Getting to write this Choose Your Own Adventure story was awesome because I got to use the Gray Ghost, which, and Zatanna, like characters that don't always get the spotlight because they're not in a movie. You know what I mean? That's what I like to do. Because that's another thing when you ask me, what do the studios or the licensors want? Sorry, my books are falling over. There's only so many Joker stories, and the Joker's in the movie, you got to use the Joker. Bane's in the movie, you got to use Bane. You know what I mean?
I love that.
But when I get to use Ra's al Ghul's in the movie, you got to use Ra's al Ghul. Fine, I'm going to use Ra's al Ghul, but the Lazarus Pit is going to be in Greece, or it's going to be in Egypt, wherever like ancient mythologies that I enjoy reading are.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna put in, you know, globe-trotting adventures and all different characters like Nightwing or Batgirl and, you know, Catwoman even. Oh, so yeah, in this story, whichever, depending on which country you go to, he teams up with a different hero. So it's very
Oh,
Indiana
That's
Jones.
cool.
If
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
goes
that's
to
really neat.
Egypt, Catwoman's there. If he goes to Peru, Batgirl is there. If he goes to Greece, Nightwing is there. And by the book, you get there's ninjas, there's immortality. It's got everything.
Hmm.
Yeah, so if I get to work in my passions, like the things that I found interesting as a kid and still do, like, you know, that's why we go for what we go for. You know,
Yeah.
that's why you're sitting in a room surrounded by the stuff that you love.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So you've written for a ton of different properties, from Disney and superheroes to Scooby to your own original stuff. Of the licensed properties, which is your favorite to write for?
Why don't I film 3 or 4 different answers? We'll take
Choose your own answer.
choose your own answer. My favorite is, and then you can jump in. Everyone votes for. Oh, come on, you can't ask me that. It's like picking my favorite, you know, children. I will say this. You know, growing up, I loved Batman and X-Men, so being able to write for Batman was great. I did write an X-Men Little Golden Book. It has been shelved indefinitely because of Disney, Marvel, Fox, what have you. So all of the original or fun stuff, as soon as there's like a whiff of a movie or a tie-in or a TV show, it's like, you gotta scrap it. You gotta use the characters that are in the movie. We'll see if it ever comes out, but yeah. I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, writing the original stuff obviously is fun because I get to come up with my own stories, use my own characters, creatures, what have you. I'm gonna switch over really quickly. Because my boo books are in the vein of Scooby-Doo, I get to, you know, tell my own Scooby-Doo stories, but with my own characters, my own world building kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Who are your favorite characters of the licensed Disney, Marvel, DC, Hasbro? Who knows?
Oh,
Say on this channel? Or?
I think I would probably go Batman, but that's just because there's a Batman Scooby-Doo crossover, you know, between the movie, the new Scooby-Doo movies, Guess Who, the comics. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's, I mean, for me, like I said, the Scooby episodes that were my favorite as I got older, because, you know, you don't see them all, obviously, on TV, but then when you find out that, what? Batman, Penguin, Joker? Come on.
Yeah.
And then even the Scooby-Doo team-ups, where you get to, those comics I read, obviously. If it wasn't the show, I got to read the comics because, you know, they teamed up with everybody. You had the Flash, you had, you know, the Metal Men, you know, people that, again, dusting off the old favorites and putting them in print, which is probably more digestible than putting it in a movie if it's not going to sell toys or, you know, make everyone happy.
Yeah. I think I would go Batman too, because I was a huge fan of Adam West's Batman series from the 60s. Like, I love everything about that. So yeah, when I saw Scooby and Batman team up then in the 70s, definitely, oh, there you go. Right there. It was perfection. It was so great. And it just, I don't know, Batman and Scooby make such a perfect pairing. Like, it just works. And I don't know that I've ever seen them paired up where I didn't like it or I didn't think it was successful. It just kind of characters that play well together, I think.
Because they're the world's greatest detectives.
Exactly. So I feel like we kind of maybe touched on this earlier, but maybe not exactly. So I'm just going to ask the question as I have it written, and hopefully you'll understand what I'm trying to get out of you.
Sure.
So when you're writing, apart from the publisher's requirements and guidelines, so what elements are important for you to include in your stories? Obviously, you want people to read your story and enjoy it, but being that you are someone that enjoyed books when you were younger, you have a young daughter that likes to read. Like, I'm thinking more in the terms of like, if I can use the terms like morals or values, or is there something like an internal kind of thing that you, when you're writing, you're like conscious of it and you want to put that in your stories?
I put this here for you.
I love it. It's perfect.
Um, and again, to tie in with Batman, Scooby-Doo, obviously a lot of my books are because of the age group that it's you know, solving problems and using teamwork or asking for help. I definitely try to incorporate that sort of thing, where it's like you can ask for help. Don't be afraid to try new things. If something is scary, you know, we've all been there. It's scary for all of us. But at the end of the day, maybe it's not so scary, especially with the Blue books and the Scooby-Doo. As you know, I feel like they're geared, you know, to an age group that's like, yes, the world out there is scary, but at the end of the day, you know, if with your friends or family and the monster has been unmasked, it wasn't as scary as we thought to begin with. That on the moral lesson side. For me, obviously, if it's scary or if it's funny or if it's both, I'm already, you know, drawn in. It comes down to entertaining, and if you're learning along the way and you don't know that you're learning, even better. It's the spoonful of sugar helping the medicine go down, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's, you know, like I said, which is why I want to incorporate humor. I want to incorporate the mystery element and horror or scares. These are all a few of my favorite things.
Yeah. Yeah. I really love how, because I don't know that people realize that this is actually rare, but I feel like you are one of the few people, especially around today, who is actively working in, let's call it the entertainment field, because I think what you do, whether it's illustrating or it's writing or the two together, it's very much entertainment for a lot of people.
Yes,
And
especially
it's actually really rare that someone has this much passion for what they're doing. Like, it's not just I do it because it's a paycheck and I need to pay the bills. I mean, obviously that's a huge bonus and that's great,
I'm
but
the
it's
first
so
man.
clear that you love it. It's what you want to be doing. And it's obvious in the work that you produce. And I think that we need to acknowledge that,
Thank
because it
you.
makes for a better product when you love what you're doing and what you're putting out and you want to put yourself in it. I love that when you have the opportunity to do something original, you're using your friends, you're using your family, you're putting in what you like. And I think that's fantastic. As someone that works in a creative field myself, I love seeing other people get passionate about what they're doing and put something of their self into it, rather than just, it's just my job. So thank you for that. That it is a lot more rare than people realize.
Feeling is mutual. You can tell me everything that you do offline. I don't know because I haven't done my research yet. I mean, part of the reason, again, this is pulling back the curtain, that I did really fight to write the Batman and Superman books that we got decades ago, was because the manuscripts that were coming in, like, I was embarrassed to send them for approval. If someone is writing a Fantastic Four movie storybook and they don't use "it's clobbering time" when the Thing jumps into the fight, the Thing said it's time to fight. It's absolutely not. I can't. This is embarrassing. No, I mean, like,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. So, like, for me, that lit the fire under me. Where I was like, you know, this isn't up. Like, I wouldn't want to read this. I mean, it's passable, but it's also forgettable. And I'm not saying that because my work is better, but I think if I were to, like, quote my editor, you know, we come back to you because, you know, you give us what we want.
Right.
And I'm very happy to do that, because again, if you're, like you said, if the passion is there and, you know, the love for the product, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not wearing this because I was invited to a podcast. I'm wearing it because, you know, I love what I do.
Yeah.
You're
And
also very committed when you dress up as a character. Like you're taking the stance of the character. You are just fully committed, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, I remember when I first got a job in corporate America, I would, stand like this or like this. And then they'd be like, are you Peter Pan or Superman? Why are you standing there? I don't know. I just stand that way. Or like, you can draw cartoons so well because you are one. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I put myself into, as artists or as creative types, it's a blessing and a curse. Sometimes at the end of the day, it's like, maybe I should have been an accountant, like my dad told me to.
Sure.
I'm exhausted.
So could you tell us, absolutely no restrictions on time or money or energy, absolutely nothing, your dream project, anything goes, what is it?
Wow. Not to throw shade, I feel like my dream project was stolen when Percy Jackson came out, because I was working on something that was like, Greek mythology in high school. And he beat me to it. So it's definitely something like that, throwing everything that I love into a blender and, making an epic story out of it, whether it's chapter books series or if it's like a big graphic novel or what. I don't know what it is yet. I'm going to figure that out when I grow up because I've got a long way to go. But yeah, it's hard when, you've dabbled in so many different things that bring you joy. Like, what is next? I don't know. And I look forward to finding that out. But yeah, it would definitely be creating a world for myself full of characters and environments that, may be the next Harry Potter or Percy Jackson or what. But I don't know. That's the truth.
Well, that's good. That's good because it's nice to have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know what it is, you just know it's going to be
Having-
great and you just have to wait.
Users need to inspire me, and then as soon as
That's right.
I find out, once I'm the first to know, then you'll be the second.
Oh, perfect.
But I mean, I could ask you guys the same question. What makes you, what brings you back to Scooby, or what is it that, sometimes we have our day jobs and then we have our real jobs, like what we do, what
That's
makes
so
us
true.
happy.
Yeah.
A lot of it is, I mean, life is stressful. There's between work and kids and reality.
Oh,
It's like,
the worst.
I walk in my Scooby room, which this whole room is Scooby.
Yeah.
And, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel happy. It just kind of melts the stress away and I don't think about anything. So.
Yeah, I can totally relate. That's why, I like to keep these things around me, like my office. So is, my toys, my books, my things, like, when everything shut down during COVID, I was more concerned about going in to get my toys and my books than I was anything.
Yeah. Scooby's a very safe space. I feel like anyone can sit down and watch Scooby and not only get something good out of it, but not take anything bad out of it either.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's hard to do that, especially today. So I love, even though I personally don't particularly love how they're modernizing Scooby, I don't like it. However, the one good thing about where we are now with technology is us and newer generations, everyone has such easy access to the old stuff.
Right.
You
And
can
I
buy a DVD, you can watch it streaming, you can do all of these things with the older stuff. So even if you don't like the newer stuff, don't watch it.
Right.
You can watch the stuff that you do like.
And we know that it's dated. And again, we watched the Minotaur episode this morning because they Greek dance in it when they're trying to escape the Minotaur. And my wife was laughing, my daughter was entertained. Like, I just wanted to show them a clip, and they said, no, leave it. We want to find out what happens. And it's timeless in its way. The comedy is there, the jokes, you know, everything works. And I feel like that's a testament to why it's been around for 50 years. It could have been forgotten or it could have been obscure. You know, now we know it's a business, and the reason that they're churning out so many different versions is to keep it relevant and to make money. But again, the fact that the original exists and there's different variations thereof, and there's something for everybody, it's, yeah, we all know why it's lasted this long, and because it's special.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for helping keep it alive, but maintaining its integrity.
Thank you. And
that's important.
before we sign off, you did want to ask me what I'm working on in the future, and it does happen to be Scooby related. They are, I don't know what they're officially called, but they're nonfiction books featuring habitats, locations, cities. Yeah, but they're like, you know, mysteries. Like Scooby and the gang are in a place that is cold, where you find polar bears. Where are they? And then, you know, you read the clues, and then you turn the page and you find out that they're in the Arctic tundra. And there's also fun facts. They're, you know, like the tallest glacier is this, and the narwhals live, you know what I mean? So you're learning stuff, but you're doing it with the Scooby gang. And something that I wanted to include is also hide a villain in the background, and then have the kids try to find, obviously, you know, the abominable snow monster is going to be at the Arctic tundra. And it's hard to like find which villain would be in the rainforest or which villain would be in the desert, but you know, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Dog talks, you know what I mean? Like, we can, so that's a lot of fun too, because working with Capstone has been a dream come true in, you know, the sense that they, you know, keep me employed, obviously, but also that they let me play in this sandbox and cross from fiction to nonfiction, and knowing that because they have a large school and library market, that these books will be in the right hands. Like they won't get lost in the big bookstores or online. Like they, you know, I know that they definitely end up at schools, at libraries, or, you know, wherever, you know, kids need to be reading. And that's a huge plus for me. So I'm excited to do this again with you when the next batch of Scooby books are out.
Yeah,
Yes,
definitely.
please.
Where can people buy the current books that you have out?
Why, they can contact me personally at sazmagic.org. I think I'm down to a few left. When they get them from me, I like to personalize and autograph them, and I'll slap a sticker on them that says, "So, autographed by John Sazaklis." Yeah, that's what you get out of it when you order them from me. Luckily, though, you know, you can buy them wherever books are sold, online or in real stores. And it's not just Barnes & Noble or your local bookstore. You can get them at Target, Walmart, any large, you know, supply chains do carry them, luckily. So it's nice that they're available for everybody and they're affordable. If you want to get the sturdy hardcovers, they do cost more because they're library editions. But the paperbacks that I think you guys have, I think are affordable. You know,
Yeah.
they're made for little hands and big hands alike. Yeah, so that's where you can find them. And again, you know, I love making new friends and new fans. So, you know, feel free to have to contact me or to provide my information. And I'm on Instagram at Johnny Saz, JOHNNYSAZ, where I like to post, you know, whatever I'm working on and when it comes out. And I can plug my newest book coming out in February. Wait, actually, my most recent books are the Snotbots. Again, with Capstone, those are original characters. They are robots that are gross, and they create, you know, stinky chaos all over Electropolis, which is protected by the Clean Team. So that's, gross out humor for kids if they're into that. And then after the Snotbots will be my first little golden book about Greek gods and goddesses, which
that's
is,
exciting.
coming full circle, growing up reading not only golden books and being a fan of Greek mythology, but now actually, making my version of something like that for the next generation. That's a lot, right?
It's good. That's good for you that you have a lot
Yeah,
coming up.
that's
so.
fantastic.
I do, and I'm glad, and I'm lucky for that. But I mean, fingers crossed that it keeps coming. Because, like you said, reality is what it is.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep buying the books if you keep making Scooby ones. So.
Tell your friends.
John, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you talking to us. And the slideshow, did you make that just for this, or did you have that made already?
Just for this and no one else.
God bless you. Thank you so much. It was amazing. That was so great to get to see everything.
That's not true either. It's I custom make them for different school visits. And because I did a lot of Zoom ones during the, I was gonna say holidays, during the pandemic, yeah, they're constantly changing. But yeah, I do plan on, if you need, like I said, a visual media of any of the Scooby books, the interiors, what have you, I can supply them, and then you can edit stuff out.
Yeah, that'd be
And it was
awesome.
a pleasure meeting you.
You too. Thank
It
you
was
so
great to meet
much.
you.
This was
Thank you very
fun.
much.
I can't wait to come visit your Scoobios.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Where are you guys located?
I'm in Pennsylvania.
And I'm in Northern Ontario, Canada. So it'll be a little bit longer trek for you to come up here, but you're always welcome to come up here if you can brave the cold and everything else.
Yeah, isn't it still December where you are?
It might as well be.
Oh my gosh. Okay. It was a pleasure. Thanks again.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, John. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another Scooby panel. I'm Nikki Blake from ScoobyAddicts.com. If you like these panels, please subscribe to my channel for more great discussions. A huge shout out to our patrons, Julie Rosen, Ross from ScoobyFan.net, Scooby-Doo of Roblox, Ruth Elliott Hilson, and Tage. If you would like to support the Scooby panel, please go to patreon.com/ScoobyAddicts. A very special thank you to New York Times bestselling children's book author John Sazaklis, and artist, blogger, and Scooby collector Wendy BRYDGE. Scooby Panel is available in podcast form on most podcast platforms, or as a web series on YouTube. You can find Scooby Panel on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter as @ScoobyPanel. Scooby and Shaggy were voiced by Scott Innes. Check out Scott's website, onescottshop.com. Scooby Addicts artwork by Will Davenport. Video editing by Nikki Blake. Music composed and performed by Bovine Nightmares. Please join us next time for another Scooby panel.